I'll do a very quick recap. It'll take about 5 to 10 minutes because when it comes to 5 aggregates, I can't rush through it. My daughter who was here actually told me, Mommy, I only caught 10% of what you're saying about the 5 aggregates. If after listening to the 5 aggregates and you still have a very vague impression of it, it's okay. In fact, a lot of the things I say here today and last week, I'll be repeating them like a broken tape recorder, so you don't have to worry, okay? Because there's only so much to the Buddha's teachings. The reason why he has 10,000 suttas is because he targets and custom makes it for each of the people or groups of people that he gives discourses to, depending on their aptitude and their inclinations, their personalities and all that, okay? Now, let's start. Okay, you look at the 4 Noble Truths. The first truth is about suffering. The second truth is cause. The third truth, the cessation. And the fourth is the path. Now, these truths form the essence of the Buddha's teachings, okay, which he upheld as the teaching special to the Buddhas, which means that all the Buddhas that came before him actually taught these truths. Now, for those who were not here last week, when I say the word suffering, what actually comes to your mind? Most of the time, it would be like sorrow, grief, pain, right? Worry, fear. Some people will throw in anger, ill will, hatred. Is that all there is to suffering? And the Pali word is dukkha. Actually, there's more to dukkha than just these mental states. You can read the words for yourself. Okay, we have to know what we are suffering from, right? And before we can let go of it. And this is what the whole Buddhist practice is about. Letting go and attaining peace and true happiness. So the Dhamma practice is really knowing your own dukkha. I'll rather use the word dukkha, okay? Knowing your own dukkha, recognizing where it comes from, how it operates in your life. Now, this is the first Noble Truth. Take a while to read through it on your own. Now, the words in white, they're very easy to understand, right? Very straightforward. It's the words in yellow that confuses people. In brief, the 5 aggregates subject to clinging are suffering. What does that phrase mean? What are the 5 aggregates? Now, I've chosen these 3 aspects of suffering to explain dukkha. Suffering in its most ordinary form, suffering of conditioned states, suffering caused by change. And we are looking not at 3 different kinds of suffering, but 3 ways of looking at suffering so that you will understand what dukkha is in totality. The first one, suffering in its most ordinary form, that one is very straightforward. Let's look. Okay, very quickly. Birth, old age, disease, and death. Then you have sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. These are stock phrases which the Buddha uses all the time. And he calls this whole thing the whole great mess of suffering. Okay? Then he goes on to elaborate, not to obtain what one wants is suffering. The picture says all. Okay? All the pictures tell you all the different types of things that people cannot get and which cause them a lot of pain. Union with what is displeasing is suffering. You notice through the 6 senses. Separation from what is pleasing is suffering. Okay. Next one. This is the one. Suffering of conditioned states. Knowing what suffering of conditioned states is the same as knowing this phrase, in brief, the 5 aggregates subject to clinging and suffering. And this is the one that I'll spend a bit more time on. And to know this, you have first to know what conditioned states are. And to know what conditioned states are, you have to know what causes and conditions are before you can see the role the 5 aggregates play in the suffering of conditioned states. Okay? First, causes and conditions. The Buddha uses these 2 words very frequently in his suttas. Okay, give you 2 examples. First one. And the second. In this second example, birth is both a cause and a condition for aging and death. Now, these 2 words, cause and condition, can mean the same thing, but there is a basic difference between them. To have a tree, you need a seed. The seed is the cause, and the tree is the effect. But the seed alone cannot make a tree. You need sunlight, air, water, and nutrients, which represent the conditions. Okay? Now, the Buddha says that arising of any phenomenon due to cause and condition will have to pass away when these same causes and conditions cease to operate. The Buddha's law of cause and effect is always dependent on conditions. You have A, then you have B. No more A, no more B. So nothing happens because you want it. Everything happens by way of cause, condition, and effect. Okay? So a condition is something that must happen or exist first before something else can happen. So a conditioned state is an experience, phenomenon, or becoming that occurs or exists because something else happened first. So now we know what conditioned states are. And the Buddha says that everything in our samsaric existence, samsara actually means the round of death and rebirth within the 31 realms of existence which the Buddha identified. So when you talk about samsaric existence, we're talking about not just this current existence, but the previous ones and your future ones. He says all these existences are governed by cause and effect. So if you look at this statement, it stands by reason that everything that exists in space and time are conditioned states, right? And in every experience, every phenomenon, and every becoming, the 5 aggregates are always present. So now, what are the 5 aggregates? First one is matter. You have the earth, you have water, you have heat, and you have air, and they represent the physical body together with the sense faculties. The sense faculties means what? Every time when I talk, I'll be using this word 6 sense bases very frequently. Okay? 6 sense bases includes the 6 internal sense bases, which are represented by your eye, your nose, your ear, tongue, skin, and the mind. Then the 6 external sense bases are their sense objects. So form for the eye, no smell, right? Sounds, taste, touch, and mind objects. Okay? So it includes the sense faculties as well as all the external objects. Then you have feelings. Feelings is the experience of a sense object as either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Okay, further down the road when we come to feelings, I will explain why the Buddha normally only touch on 3. Then we have perceptions, which is the recognition of both physical and mental objects. Now, they also recognize the quality of the objects. There's simple perception. Simple perceptions like this. You look at me and you know, okay, this is UE. Then this is a mic. These are slides. That's a chair. This is a room. That's simple perception. The more complex ones are those that are based on your upbringing, your life experiences, okay, social customs and traditions, and how you see things. For example, whether something is right or wrong, good or bad, good looking or ugly, rich or poor, intelligent or ugly. All these are based on your own benchmarks, okay, on morality, on fame, on money, on everything that is influenced by all these upbringing and life experiences. And your perceptions will influence the way you view the world. Perception is also strongly associated with memories. And since no two persons have the same memories, then you will never have identical perceptions, correct? Now, mental formation, actually very easy, no? Mental formation is all those mental states in your mind, minus feeling, minus perception. So all these things like anger, jealousy, loving kindness, compassion, all these mental states, that's mental formation. Now, what is the difference between feeling and perception, and mental formation? Perception, remember this as a guideline. Perception has more got to do with the past because it's associated with memory. Mental formation, more on the future. Because within the realm of mental formation lies karma, right? And karma, you all know, is like a boomerang. What goes around comes around. And what comes around usually happens immediately after you commit a deed or sometime in the future. Okay, so that's how you differentiate the two. And feelings, somebody asked me once, what's the difference between feeling and emotion? There is a difference. Feeling is like what I showed you just now. Pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. But there are a lot of layers of feeling. Okay, you have this feeling first, after you perceive something, right? And then immediately, based on the perception, the feeling, you have mental states that comes out, like it could be anger, it could be compassion, it could be indignant, so on and so forth. Now, these mental states produce another layer of feelings, right? Because jealousy, does it feel nice? No. Compassion, feels nice, but got a bit of bitter feeling to it, a bit of dukkha there. So it adds to it. And then you have what follows, your reaction to these mental states, which in turn produces another flood of feelings. So what you have as a package, that forms emotion. Understand? That's a feeling, difference between feeling and emotion. Then you have consciousness, which is the awareness through the five senses and the mind, which means when you're feeling, you're aware of the feeling, it's because of your consciousness. When you have perceptions, you're aware of what you perceive, it's because of consciousness. Now, just give you a very quick example. Where you have the eye, a functioning eye, and you see a sense object, eye consciousness will arise, and these will give information that will lead to perception first. Normally, it's perception first. Then it will produce some kind of feeling. Okay, if your perception is does this look like Maserati, by the way? If it is, a lot of people like Maseratis, right? So it's like a status symbol, it's a very nice car. When you drive something like that, it shows you have arrived. So, nice feeling, okay? And then the mental state is greed, you want it. But if you can't afford it and somebody else drives it, sometimes there's envy, right? And you are aware of all these because of consciousness. This is just a very simple illustration. So far, so good? Yeah? So now we look at, we look at this, in brief, the 5 aggregates subject to clinging are suffering. Now we see what it means. What do you mean by clinging? It comes from the Pali word upadana. Okay? Clinging means attachment. Attached means what? You're very preoccupied with it. It means you can't let go. That's what clinging means. All right? Now, obvious for the body, right? This body has to be continually fed. It has to be cleaned. It has to be exercised. It has to be recharged, rested. But do we just do that? We do a lot more than that, you know. We spend a lot of time, money, and effort on this body to make it look good, right? To slow down aging, okay, to get fit. But we all know that this body will age. But sometimes it's very hard to accept. When you see your hair going white, you see more and more wrinkles, and then what you can complete, a 2.4 last time can complete under 10 minutes, now you need 20 minutes. You feel sad? You feel discouraged? Why? Because we are attached to this body. Can't let go. Very difficult to let go. Okay? And the mind, too fast. The mind also, the mind suffers. Okay? It continually wants to experience pleasant feelings, and it's always trying to run away or suppress unpleasant feelings. We listen to our minds that way, you notice? And because we do, we're always trying to give the mind what it wants, there is always suffering. When there's aversion to our feelings, there's aversion to our perceptions, and aversion to thoughts. There is also suffering in pleasure as well. Why? Simply because the pleasant feelings do not last. Okay? And every time we want to keep these feelings, it fades. But we cling to it anyway, or at least to the thought of it, and we think of ways and means to bring these feelings back. Don't you? A lot of you, sometimes you eat, Mao Shang Wang durian. Eat. Sometimes you eat, you're not really enjoying the taste right there and then, no. You're actually thinking, when's the next time I can eat this, huh? Or where else can I buy Mao Shang Wang that is this good? Right? You will seldom enjoy it there and then. The enjoyment only lasts a while. Then you start thinking already, when can I get it? When can I get it? And when the durian is not in front of you, sometimes you think about it. Shall we go and buy this durian? Then you start thinking. Okay? There's a lot of clinging. Cannot let go. If somebody tells you, you're not supposed to take Mao Shang Wang durian for the rest of your life, how do you feel? Can let go or not? Not nice feeling, right? Okay? Now you know what it means. There's also clinging to perceptions. Because our life experiences, our upbringing and all that gives birth to ideas, to beliefs, to theories, to even our creed in life. Okay? When somebody challenges your views and your perceptions, how do you feel? Not nice, right? Angry. Indignant. A lot of indignance because you always feel you are right. How many of us always think we are wrong? Very seldom. And not only that, we are very 90.5. We hear only the good things about ourselves. The rest, we just live in denial, or we just very push aside, don't want to hear. Right? It's always like that. This ego is the ego. Okay? Now. Sorry. I'm not very good at this. We listen to our mind, but does our mind listen to us? Okay? The Buddha says that this is a monkey mind. a fault-finding mind. What does it mean? It means that this mind does what it wants, and it has a tendency to make us unhappy. Let me give you an example. If your colleague was to come up to you and start scolding you, even if he was justified, okay, not nice, like harsh speech, right? But he's justified, okay, in accusing you of something. What is your feeling? Do you accept it and go, yeah, I'm wrong, and after that, you feel a lot of compassion, a lot of metta, and then you forget about it? No. You will get angry, and then after he leaves, you think your anger will fade? The odds are you will carry this anger back home with you, and then your mind will loop and loop. What does it mean? You will think, how come I didn't answer him back? I should have said this, Scenario number 1, I said this, what will happen? Scenario number 2, if I said something else, how do you think he will receive it? Will he apologize to me? If scenario number 3, then you start thinking, how come he dislikes me so much? Did somebody talk to him about me? Then you start thinking, who is the person? And in the meantime, the story just gets more and more complicated in your mind. You don't even need to watch Korean drama series. You have one right inside your head, okay? And it just goes on. Then I ask you this. Do you like to get angry? Does anybody here like to suffer? Anyone here like to suffer? No, right? Then why do you get angry? Why? And why, when we get angry, we can't seem to let go of the anger as and when we want to let go? Why does the anger on the same subject come back to haunt us, even when the person is not in front of us anymore? Why? Simply because this is a monkey mind. It is a fault-finding mind. And for this reason, it's good to know Dhamma. Because when you don't know Dhamma, when you have an untrained mind, you are letting the mind manage you. What we are trying to learn here is to manage the mind. Yes? Okay? Now, the important thing to know is that the 5 aggregates on their own do not cause suffering. It's because the 5 aggregates provide or creates the conditions for clinging and craving. That's why suffering results. Let me give you an example. Then you will know next time when you read books and they say 5 aggregates subject to clinging. What do you mean by the word subject to clinging? Okay, just now we saw this, right? Now, the cause, what is the cause? The cause is the preconceived notion that this Maserati is a good car, a worthy car, a car that all rich people must buy, okay? Then what are the conditions? The effect, of course, is to possess the car, okay? But the conditions, what are the conditions? Mundane reason condition must have money. But when you're talking in relation to 5 aggregates, what are the conditions? The conditions is that you must have that feeling, perception, mental formation creates the condition in terms of what? Feeling, nice feeling. The condition's there already, floating there. The perception also, which is the cause, right? The condition and cause sometimes the same, is that it's a good car. And the mental formation, I want it. You want to possess it, it's greed, okay? Then I ask you this, for a blind person, where are the conditions? Because the blind person may know the cause is, yes, it's a good car. But if the person has been blind from birth, cannot imagine what a Maserati looks like, right? Here engine only, vroom, vroom, very noisy though. Okay, you can't visualize what's so great about the car. Feeling will not be there, right? Mental formation is all stunted. Because even you're blind, you give him a Maserati, you also cannot drive, right? Not. So the conditions, they don't create the conditions. The 5 aggregates, in this case, cannot create the conditions for the blind person to want to have the car. So in this case, now do you understand when they said the 5 aggregates creates the condition for craving and clinging. Only when you succumb to, you cannot resist the temptation that's presented by all these conditions, then you suffer. That's how it happens. Okay? Now, the Buddha said in this sutta, you all read? Okay. You realize he mentioned 5 aggregates here. Do you see the first noble truth here? A burden indeed are the 5 aggregates. That's the first noble truth. The carrier of the burden is the person. Taking up the burden in the world is stressful. Second noble truth. Casting off the burden is bliss. Third noble truth. And what did he define as suffering? 5 aggregates. That's why it's important to know what the 5 aggregates are and how it works. Because next time when you read Dharma books, you will come across this term very frequently. And when you attend Dharma talks, you will find the Sangha talking about this very frequently too. Now, so we know 5 aggregates is not the problem. It's our attachment to the 5 aggregates that is the problem. We are attached to our body. We are attached to feelings, a lot of feelings. We always want pleasant feelings. We are very attached to our perceptions. We are very attached to our thoughts. That's where suffering lies. Okay, now we know these two, right? Got some more or not? God. Okay, dukkha haven't ended yet. Okay, as the first noble truth, dukkha, this word has a wider significance than this number 1 and number 2. Suffering caused by change. What do you mean by inherent unsatisfactoriness of conditioned states? It's trying to tell you that the essential characteristic of conditioned states is dukkha. What does that mean? It's just another way of looking at dukkha. Now you read what Ayya Khema says. She was an attained nun. She just died in 1997. She's talking about the movement, friction. Okay, what does it mean? You know, scientists have shown some time ago already that atoms that makes up the electrons, the neutrons, and the protons, they are always in a state of constant flux. They move all the time. If even atoms cannot stay static, what about everything around us that's material? They also move and change, right? So that all forms, no matter how stable they appear to be, they are not permanent and immutable. Okay, she went on to say this. Now, in the first paragraph, when she talks about more awareness, that's what we are trying to cultivate through meditation, to have a better awareness of the body. Like you say, I can't feel the heartbeat. It comes with practice. You practice, very soon you can feel your heartbeat. You can feel more and more things. And then with sensitivity of body, next will be your sensitivity to the mind. And that's important because we need to be sensitive, to have more awareness of our minds, to see Dharma. Okay? And we know this body always has demands. It's always looking for something. You notice after you eat, you have to clear up your bowels. Once you clear up bowels, you are looking for food again. It's non-stop. Okay? It needs this repetitive input, output, or else the body cannot survive. And the mind changes too, right? Your feelings change all the time. Your perceptions change. Your mental states change. There's always change. Now, this third aspect actually can be understood more by looking at the word dukkha. Du actually means bad, low, base, vulgar. And kha means empty. So it actually refers to anything that is bad because it's empty, unsubstantial, illusory. In other words, it refers to a state of all conditioned things. Because of its impermanence. Okay? We very showed, right, that even atoms can move. Atoms change all the time, the movement. That means nothing is permanent around you. And is always vulnerable to pain. There's always dukkha, unsatisfactoriness. And why there's dukkha? Because nothing here can give us lasting and complete satisfaction. Why? Because it is outside our control. And if it is outside our control, means what? Does it belong to us? Is it self? No, because everything, including our minds and bodies, are not self. This is what the Buddha calls the three universal characteristics. And these three universal characteristics are what we will try to see. This is the Dhamma that we will try to see in Vipassana practice. Now you just understand it intellectually first. Okay? Now, this dukkha is very well described by Bhikkhu Bodhi. Sometimes this unsatisfactoriness erupts into the open as sorrow, grief, disappointment, and despair. But usually it hovers at the edge of our awareness as a vague, unlocalized sense that things are never quite perfect, never really fully adequate to our expectations of what they should be. By reading this, does it bring out something in you? Are there times when you enjoy something, but you just feel that something is missing, that you are not fully satisfied with what is in front of you? Have you ever had that feeling? Yes? Right? Yeah. That is what it means. Okay? As long as you are conditioned being, there'll always be dukkha. Now, so, Ajahn Jayasaro says, okay, dukkha is experienced seen as not nibbana. Even the most subtle and sublime mental states. And this he's referring, I think, most probably to what you experience in the jhanas, what you call concentration meditation, when your mind goes up all the way, the 5th, 6th, 7th jhanas, your happiness is very refined, the bliss is so refined. Even then, okay, it is still dukkha. Why? It does not last. Now, the body we have is conditioned. We already know it. That's why there's dukkha. We can't run away from it. Now the mind, in its natural, unaltered state, is pure. We all have it inside us. It's a still mind. Okay? But because the 5 aggregates creates the conditions for craving and clinging, the untrained, unenlightened mind cannot resist these temptations. What happens? It goes out. It gets attracted or it gets repelled. Whether you're attracted or repelled, the mind moves. It gets what they call agitated. And we already found out, right? With this kind of movement, there is already dukkha. Okay? And when it moves, it changes. So remember this aspect of it, because we'll come back to it when we get to the third noble truth. You don't understand, it's okay. It's quite abstract. But with time, with practice, you'll be able to understand it more and more. Okay, the Buddha taught this first noble truth. A timekeeper. Last part, a bit more. Okay, he taught this first noble truth. Why? So we will take this practice very seriously, which means that every time when there's dukkha, we are supposed to turn our mind inwards, not outside. We don't participate in the dukkha, okay? We turn our mind inwards. We go to the dukkha. We know the dukkha. We recognize it in all its forms. We witness its rise and fall. And we do this objectively, without controlling it, without participating in it, and without identifying with it. We are supposed to understand the nature of the experience itself, to see things as they are. Have you all seen these words, to see things as they are, in books? And you always wonder what it means? Okay? These Friday classes is here for this purpose, to help you to see things as they are. What are they? That's for you to find out. So come, okay? And now, the thing is, in a lot of books, they will tell you when you are a beginner to the Buddhist practice and still struggling with the basics, try not to go and look at dukkha. Because why? Dukkha you have to see objectively. Okay? Like for example, you get angry. You cannot say, I am angry, and then go and look at the anger. It doesn't work that way. You have to be very sensitive to your mind, number one. Number two, you have to see anger as an object, not a subject. Subject means you are in it already. Not easy. This is not easy. Okay? And they say why? You need clarity of mind and calmness of mind that comes only with mindfulness and meditation practice. Then you say, then how? I beginner? That means I don't see anything. I don't even practice any way to look at dukkha. Actually, you can. Okay? This is something which I think everybody should start doing now. I'm going to teach you to do it. Actually, it's quite easy because you have to start cultivating good habits right from the start. Now, just now you all chanted this, right? Mano, Puba, Gama, Dhamma. Yeah? And then you chanted the other one, which is for good states of mind, right? I want to ask you this. In the English language, they always say, when you're happy, you're very light, right? Correct? They always use the word lightness to describe happiness. And they always use the word heavy to describe sadness, sorrow, grief, anger. You notice? Now, I want you to look back to a time when you're very happy. Do you actually feel light? They always say float with happiness. Yeah? And what about the times when you're very sad? You notice that even your eyelids feel very heavy. Yes? By the way, that's not your body. That was your mind. Okay? So if you say you're totally not sensitive to mind, you are to a certain extent. So next time, when you actually have a lot of sadness, start with the extremes first. I want you to turn your mind inwards. Don't participate in the sadness, means don't go and let your mind loop and loop and loop. Turn and observe this self, this body and the mind. How does the body react? Chart, okay? Chart it. And then observe, how is your mind? You will notice, there is a certain heaviness. Body, don't feel very good, headache, okay, pain here, breathing heavier. When you're angry, what happens? Your skin gets warmer, right? Your heart beats faster. Make these observations. That's awareness, creating awareness of body and mind. Yeah? Notice that this is dukkha. Don't tell yourself, I'm suffering. Just say, this is suffering. This is dukkha. That's a start. You have to start somewhere, and you might as well start now. Right? Do that. Okay. Another thing is this. When you see that as long as you're not enlightened, you have dukkha. Don't feel discouraged. Okay? This practice is not a case where Nibbana is there, and then you are here, and then, boom, you jump there and you go, no more suffering. And then what happens in between? Suffer, 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 suffer. No, it's not like that. As long as you practice the Noble Eightfold Path, okay, the Buddha says it's a very gradual process. If you're diligent, you're consistent, you will notice as long as you're observing and practicing what the Buddha teaches, your suffering will slowly get less and less. It's not an overnight thing. Watch your mental states. I will teach you how to do it further down the road. Now you just watch the lightness and heaviness of body and mind first. Okay? You will be able to see when you observe right speech, right action, looking at right effort, and all that, you will slowly, slowly see the letting go. Just meditation alone, without even knowing the Dhamma, you will see the effects. Because scientists have shown that when you meditate, okay, certain parts of your brain gets activated, you actually become more empathetic and you practice more compassion. So start with the meditation practice first. Okay? It's not difficult. Dhamma is not difficult. It's difficult only because you have not established those habits yet. Okay, any questions? Was it too easy or too difficult? The slides. Okay, I think the Buddhist library wants to have a copy of my slides. But I would like to caution everybody that use the slides for your own reference. Okay? Do not try to take the slides and out of good intentions, try to teach someone else. Because, in case you don't get all the facts right, you may end up teaching the wrong thing. It took me many years to get to this stage, and a lot of studying, a lot of research, and a lot of practice. Yes? Thank you. Yes?
So if somebody seems to be very aware of himself,
Mm.
and he seems to be very, very, very mindful of his own feelings and emotions, and he keeps on telling it to you, telling you that you are not in that state, that's not being mindful, right? Because you're trying to see someone for what the person is, and you're not being mindful for yourself, but you think that you are.
Oh, yeah.
Possible?
Try not to judge. In fact, the moment you judge, okay, you're not really a Buddhist practitioner anymore. Because you have a big ego. Always tell yourself this, who am I to judge? That person has greed, hatred, delusion, right? You also have greed, hatred, delusion. And you will continue to have that until you become an arahant. That person is not perfect. You are not perfect. So every time when a person judges you, just accept it and let it go. Okay? But you yourself, every time when you see somebody doing wrong, you have to practice right speech. We'll come to that. That's a very interesting topic, okay? But what you do is always tell yourself this. Who am I to judge? And then tell yourself, look at the person and go, may you be well and happy. Don't judge. Learn from the person's mistakes. Because the road to Nibbana, okay, is you. Doesn't involve anyone else. The moment you start judging, you are displaying a negative state of mind, a very critical mind already. Yes?
we listen to our mind. Perhaps how to explain it a little bit more.
We don't listen to our minds.
Like I'm having this difficulty trying to grasp the concept of the mind.
Mm.
On one hand, it's a monkey mind
Mm.
that does all the bad things,
Mm.
recognizes all the bad things. On the other hand, you're saying that it's like we are able to observe, we are able to correct, and see. It's almost like there are two sides of the coin to our mind. One is a good one, the other side is
It's a one in training. Yeah, monkey mind is totally what the Buddha calls an uninstructed mind, untrained mind. That means you cannot even control your mind. It just runs here, runs there. Like just now I gave the scenario about anger. When you do the observing, that is what you call vipassana practice. It's part of mental cultivation. In fact, our whole lives should be a process of mental cultivation. That means, for example, hopefully, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, never mind. You get angry. What you do is you turn inwards. Okay? You will see the anger. The Buddha actually says, somebody asked him, what do you mean when you say Dhamma is sanditiko akaliko? That means visible here and now, timeless. He says, when you have greed, you see greed. When you have anger, you see anger. Okay? A lot of people take home as thoughts. I have angry thoughts. I see angry thoughts. He's not referring to the thoughts. The thoughts are still part of the mind, but that's only the contents of the mind. What he's asking you to see is the nature of the mind that doesn't lie. And the nature of the mind is what we, as mentors here, are trying to train you to see. Okay, that is what you call vipassana practice, where you observe the mind. And you will notice that once you turn your mind inwards to observe the mind, what happens? You're cutting yourself out from the outside world, which means you will not participate in all these things anymore. That means you cut yourself out from the source of the anger. You cut yourself off from further looping of the mind. All the subsequent thoughts that are involved in this angry making process. So when you cut yourself off, what happens? Your train of thought gets disrupted. And your anger, you're only looking at the nature of anger, the energy of anger. And you're supposed to observe it and watch it and see for yourself what is the nature of this experience. Then the Buddha says, when you look at it, you will recall his teachings, and this is what you call deconditioning. You are already conditioned to feel greed, hatred, and delusion, not just in this life, but from all the previous lives. When you do this inward observation, you are reversing the process. You are deconditioning your mind. Do you know what I'm talking about? A little bit. This is called deconditioning. That means you are trying to get the mind away from all this conditioned thinking that involves the I want, which I will explain more in the second noble truth. The I want, I don't want, all these thoughts of anger, greed, that comes to you again and again unbidden. Sometimes you just can't control it. The monkey mind can't control. But we are helping you to train this mind to be able to let it go, let it go, let it. Each time you let it go and you tell yourself, impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, not self, you are deconditioning the mind. Can you just accept it at face value first? Then we will look and examine it in more detail as we go along. And another last thing, another last thing is, Four Noble Truths is a very heavy topic. No matter how interesting, I try to make it, it's heavy. Next week, we cover Second Noble Truth, because that one's lighter. And then the week after next, I'll do meditation to tell you what meditation is all about, why we meditate. That one is more lighthearted. I think you all will enjoy it more. Then we alternate heavy, light. Then you all won't get so chua, okay? Can? Any other questions? Okay.